So here's something very interesting I have in my studio today. So this is the VIOFO A129 Plus Duo version. You also get a elder sibling, which is the A129 Plus Pro, which is a 4K resolution camera. But this is a Quad HD plus 1080p combo, and you can see it's straight away written here Quad HD plus FHD dual channel Wi-Fi dashcam. It has a built-in Sony StarVis image sensor for front and rear. Do note that this is not the StarVis 2 sensor. This is the previous generation StarVis sensor. So you have a pictorial representation of the camera. Now this rear camera actually looks pretty unique in its design. Also, they have provided the same features again at the bottom. On the left side of the box, you have certain features highlighted. It says Quad HD plus FHD. It has f1.6 aperture with a 7 glass high quality lens. It has a Sony StarVis image sensor, super night vision, 2-inch HD screen, built-in Wi-Fi, CPL filter which is optional, GPS logger is also optional, and a Bluetooth remote which is also optional. Taking a look at the rear of the box, some important features have been highlighted here. So as you can see, it is a 2K Quad HD plus 1080p Full HD dual channel video recording, Sony StarVis 5 megapixel and 2 megapixel sensor for front and rear cam, 140-degree wide angle for the front camera and a 160-degree wide angle for the rear camera. VIOFO app support. It has G sensor and motion detection as well. Parking mode is supported, and it supports micro SD cards up to 256 GB. So let's move on and open up the box quickly and take a look at the dash camera. So here's a nice cushiony wrapping, and let's take out the front cam. Now I must say again, this resembles the VIOFO Mini 2, similar in design. Well, I don't have the Mini 2 at hand right now, but anyway, a smart, sleek and a compact looking dash cam. You have this VIOFO branding on top. It says Quad HD at the bottom. You have a similar set of buttons which we usually find in VIOFO cameras. On the other side, you have this older micro USB port for the rear camera, a similar port designated as USB, and a AV port. Now you have this GPS module which also doubles up as your windshield adapter. So here's the rotating camera. So as you can see, you get this prominent clicking sound when you rotate. So I think it more or less will adapt to vertical windshields as well. And you have a wide degree of rotation. So as you can see, it rotates, I think, about 90 degrees the camera lens. So let's keep the camera here and let's take a look at one of the most unique rear camera designs which I have seen till now. So here it is, a very uniquely designed rear camera. It has this wide mount for the windshield. On the back you don't find anything. I think there is a LED light at the bottom probably. And let's rotate the camera and see. Yeah, this again rotates about 90 degrees. So you need to stick this onto the windshield and you can align it. So let's keep the rear camera here. So again, a similar set of papers and documentations as we saw in all of the other previous VIOFO unboxings. You have this read before installation guide. So you can pause the video and you might read this if you want. Again, following this, you have the electrostatic stickers, 2 electrostatic stickers for you to use for attaching the dash camera. You have this user manual for the dash cam, and along with that you have the professional customer service card. You have an additional pair of stickers for both front and the rear dash cam. So this is going to be very useful if you plan on changing the position of the dash camera somewhere in the future. So here is what I think is the USB power cable and also a 12-volt car charger with 2 USB ports. So this is the front camera power cable. Following this, you have the rear camera cable. So as you can see, the wire has micro USB ports at both ends. So quite a thick wire for the rear camera. So let's keep it here. Following this, you have this data transfer cable which you can plug into the camera in order to transfer the videos or images. Also, some additional clips are provided. So these are the things which you get inside the box for the VIOFO A129 Plus Duo model. So now let's take a look at some of the important features of this dash cam. This dash camera has a Novatech 96670 processor. The front camera comes with a Sony StarVis IMX335 sensor, and the rear camera comes with a Sony StarVis IMX 307 sensor. The front camera has a f1.6 aperture with a 140-degree field of view, and the rear camera comes with a f1.6 aperture with a 160 degrees field of view. The front camera will give you a 2560 into 1440p at 60 frames per second and 1920 into 1080 at 30 frames per second. You also get a 2560 into 1440p at 30 frames per second along with a 1920 into 1080 at 30 frames per second. Also, you have a combination of 1920 into 1080 at 60 fps along with a 1920 into 1080 at 30 fps. It has a 2-inch HD LCD display. It supports memory cards up to 256 GB. It has a built-in 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi. It has a built-in supercapacitor and no inbuilt battery. It has a windshield mount which comes with a built-in GPS. You have the option to buy a Bluetooth remote later on. You also have an optional CPL filter available. And if you want to activate the parking mode, you need to purchase the VIOFO HK3 hardware kit separately. Taking a look at the video sample, now on top you see the front camera video and at the bottom you see the rear camera video. Comparing the video quality of both these cameras side by side, you can make out that this performs at a very optimum level and you get a very decent footage out of both the dash cameras. Taking a look at the license plate readability, now this is a very good license plate read. All letters and numbers are clearly visible and a very minimal to nil amount of noise. The overall footage from the rear camera does seem to be slightly overexposed compared to the front cam, but hey, both cameras are performing as expected and there's no major drawback or a major problem with the footages from both the dash cameras. So starting with the nighttime footage from the front camera, if we take a look at the license plate read at the car in front, so as you can see, even though in spite of being in the glare of my headlight, this dash camera is able to read the license plate, although the central area is a bit overglowing I think, but overall you can still make out the number plate. Now let's jump into another instance wherein I want to show you that there is a high glare coming from the opposite vehicle as indicated by the arrow, and in spite of having such a high glare, if I zoom in on the license plate at the left corner of the car, as you can see, the license plate read is pretty good. You can read all the letters and numbers very clearly. But there's a very interesting scenario which I want to show you. If you can notice, there is a red color Swift car right in front of my car about a distance of 20 to 25 feet, and if I zoom in on its license plate, now this is simply amazing. This is simply fantastic because I never expected this dash camera to read the number plate at such a far range in spite of having such a high glare right next to it. I mean, you cannot say that you cannot make out the number plate in this. Even though it is slightly blurred out, all letters and numbers are distinctively visible and you can make out the entire plate. The rest of the area is completely filled with noise because of the glare from the headlight which I just showed you, but the overall license plate readability is simply amazing. This goes to show that the license plate readability is actually very decent, actually very good in this dash camera, and this will be something worth investing. Taking a look at the license plate read in a normal condition without glare, you can again make out the license plate very easily. Now this car is about a distance of 10 to 15 feet. Coming to the daytime footage of the license plate readability from the front cam, now let's zoom in on the car right ahead about a distance of 15 feet. Now a very good read of a license plate again, no disturbance, no noise, actually a very decent license plate read. Let's jump on further down into the video to show you a very close-up view of the license plate. So here, as you can see, a very crystal clear read of the license plate. I mean, this can't get any better than this. All dash cameras actually excel, actually perform very well at a very close range, and even in this example, the license plate read at a very close range is simply fabulous. Now just notice the Renault Duster standing on the left corner. Now if I just zoom in on that, you can make out the number plate in this even though the car is at the far edge of the screen, and the license plate of this car is actually covering a very small portion of the entire image, but still this camera is able to distinctively make out each letter and number. Coming to the overall footage from the daytime quality, as you can see, this camera supports a 2560 into 1600p resolution at 30 frames per second. The bitrate is about 24,000 kbps and the file size is about 178 MB per minute. The color saturation, contrast and brightness levels are pretty decent, and the overall video quality does look very natural and very balanced, and there are no major complaints regarding to its daytime video quality. Coming to the nighttime footage, again a similar experience as seen in the daytime, a very balanced picture. there is no high exposure or high glare from the headlights, and also definitely what I can say is there is a very minimal to nil amount of noise in this video footage from the front camera. So the rear camera too does offer a similar experience, although I might say it is slightly underwhelming when you compare this with the front camera quality. Now that's pretty obvious because this is a 1080p camera and the front is a 1600p high resolution camera. So the overall picture quality does justice to the resolution it carries, and you will get a very decent, a very good quality from the rear camera in daytime in this dash camera. Coming to the nighttime footage from the rear camera, now you can make out that it catches some glare from the vehicles which are facing towards the rear camera, but the point to note is that this camera does not overexpose the entire image because of a single particular glare or multiple vehicles focusing their headlights on the rear cam. The glare is limited to a very small area of the entire image, and the rest of the image seems unaffected, looks unaffected, and renders pretty clear compared to the area where there is a high amount of glare. This goes to show that the rear camera calibration is very balanced, and the overall picture quality provided by the rear camera at night is very satisfying and goes on par with the footage provided by the front camera even during night time. So to say in short, the rear camera performs very well in both day and night conditions and gives you a very good quality compared to most of the other cams which have a slightly lesser rear camera quality. So here are the in-app settings for the VIOFO A129 Plus Duo camera. So at first you have this video resolution setting, and if I click on that, so it gives you a list of the resolutions and the frame rates present in order to set the camera for recording. So first of all, you get this 2560 into 1600p at 30 frames per second. So actually this camera can go up to 1600p resolution, but it has not been mentioned explicitly outside in any marketing material, and this is an excellent thing by this camera. Coming to the main selling point, that this camera records at 2560 into 1440p at 60 frames per second. Now you might find many 1440p cameras out there which record only at 30 frames per second, but this camera can record 1440p at 60 frames per second, and that makes a huge difference. Following that, you have 1440p at 30 frames. Then again you have a 1080 at 60 frames per second, but this is a 2560 into 1080 at 60 fps. Then you have 2560 into 1080 at 30 fps. Then you have the 1296p resolution. Following that, you have the full HD at 60 frames per second, full HD at 30 frames per second. Then you have a HD 720p at 120 frames per second. Now this is game changing because I haven't seen any camera support 120 frames per second up until now. Although the resolution is less, it is just a high definition 720p resolution, but having support for 120 frames per second is a pioneering thing, is a excellent thing. Following that, again you have a 720p at 60 fps and a 720p at 30 frames per second. Now I really like this kind of variety and this kind of a convenience the in-app settings provides in order to set the desired resolution and fps, and among all these I definitely like this 720p at 120 fps. Following that, I really like the fact that it has a 1440p also at 60 fps, and then it also supports a maximum resolution of 1600p at 30 fps. So that was regarding the video resolution. Then you have the loop recording option, where you can completely turn off loop recording, or you can set it to a minimum of 1 minute all the way up to 10 minutes. Then you have the option to enable or disable the audio, which is the mic. Then you have exposure value for front and the rear camera, which you can increase or decrease based on your requirement. You have the HDR option, where you can turn it off completely or turn it on, or make the camera set it on or off by setting it at auto. Then you have the auto HDR time. You can set the time manually when the camera turns on or turns off the HDR. Then you have motion detection option also present. Then there is a G sensor option, which you can toggle around with the sensitivity of the G sensor or turn it off entirely. Then you have the date stamp option, which you can turn on or off for the video. Then you have the bitrate option, where you can select low, medium or high bitrate. Then you have the time lapse recording. If you click on that, you have the option to turn it off completely. You have the option to have time lapse recording starting from 100 milliseconds. Then you have the 200 milliseconds option. Then you have 1 second, 2 second, all the way up to 10 minutes. So that's a long range of options you have get in order to record time-lapse recording. Then you have the system setting option wherein you can set the time zone, you can synchronize the time to your smartphone. You have the boot delay option, you have the parking mode option which you can turn it off, or you can set it at auto event detection. You can set also time lapse for 1 frame per second, 2 frames per second, all the way up to 10 fps. Then lastly you also have the low bitrate recording. Now I've made in detail a video regarding all of these parking monitoring features. If you are interested, you can go ahead and check that out as well. Then you have the parking recording timer. You can set the maximum or the minimum amount of time you want the camera to record a parking video. Then you have enter parking mode timer. You can set the camera to enter parking mode after a certain duration of about 90 seconds, or you can turn it off entirely. Then you have the parking G sensor option for high sensitivity, low sensitivity and medium. Parking motion detection. You have the option to rotate the image. If you click on that, you have the option of turning it off, or rotating the front only camera, rotating the rear only camera, or rotating both front and the rear camera. Then you have the rear camera mirror option. So you have the option of turning off or turning on the notification sounds. You can select the live video source which is displayed on the app as front camera or the rear camera, or both front or both rear. You can select based on your requirement. You can enable or disable the GPS data as well. Following this, you have the speed unit option which you can select as kilometers per hour or miles per hour. Then you have the GPS info stamp wherein you can turn it off completely, or you can make the speed and coordinates appear on the video. You can make only the speed appear, or you can make the coordinates appear. Then you have the camera model stamp which displays the name of the camera. Then you have the screensaver option wherein you can enable the camera to turn off the display after a maximum amount of 3 minutes or a minimum amount of 1 second, or you can turn it off entirely. Following this, you have the frequency option which has two options, such as 50 Hz and 60 Hz. Then you have the language of the camera. Following this, you have the format SD card option. Then you have the Wi-Fi name, SSID name, you can change that. You can change the Wi-Fi password. You can select a custom text stamp which you want to appear on the video. You can write down your car license number as well if you want it to appear on the video. Then following that, here it displays the free space on your existing memory card which is inserted into the dash cam. Then you have the reset camera button in order to reset the camera to its factory settings. Lastly, you have the app version of the current VIOFO app which you are using, and the firmware version of the dash camera. So the A129 Plus Duo does seem to offer a very good video quality at its price. Also, at the price of about 20,000 rupees, you get a dash camera which can shoot at 120 frames per second, 120 fps at 720p resolution. Also, it can shoot 1440p at 60 frames per second, and the highest resolution it can go is 1600p at 30 frames per second. Well, I really think this kind of a wide range of shooting options available within this dash cam is something which is very useful to the end user, because we can shoot based on our requirement and not how the dash camera wants us to shoot. If you want a high speed video in bright sunlit daylight conditions, you can go ahead with a 720p 120 fps option. If you want the highest clarity, you can go with the 1600p 30 fps option, or if you want best of both worlds, you can shoot 1440p at 60 fps. That being said, this camera also has a wide range of features which you can check out in my previous videos. So if you're interested in purchasing this dash cam, the link to purchase it is provided in the description below. Click down on the description, go ahead and purchase it. So I hope this video has helped you out in making the right decision. And in case if it did, make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button and smash that like button. Also, do not forget to hit the bell icon so that you get notified each time I upload a new video. So that's it. This was a video for today. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.